Hello aspirants, welcome to GS Wizard. This is the second video of space technology section of Science and Technology. In this video, we are going to discuss about the INSAT satellites of India, and then we are going to discuss about the next type of orbit, which is the low Earth orbit, and also the communication satellites in low Earth orbit. How do they function in low Earth orbit? Next, we are going to discuss about two important satellites in low Earth orbit, which are the International Space Station and the Hubble Space Telescope. And next, we are also going to discuss about the next type of orbit, which is the polar orbit and its uses. So let's just begin. India's INSAT series of satellites were placed in geostationary orbit. In the previous video, we have discussed about geostationary orbit, right? We have discussed about geostationary and geosynchronous orbits. So India's INSAT series of satellites were placed in geostationary orbit. Now, what do you mean by INSAT? The Indian National Satellite System. It is a series of 11 satellites. Originally 24 were launched, and out of 24, 11 are still in operation. And the first INSAT satellite was INSAT 1B. It was launched in 1983. Okay. Now, INSAT satellites are used for telecommunications, as you can observe from geostationary orbit, telecommunications, and next broadcasting, weather study, search and rescue operations. Now, what is the significance of INSAT satellites? Why are we even discussing about them? The INSAT system brought a revolution in India's television and radio broadcasting and telecommunications and weather forecasting. Okay, INSAT system literally enabled the rapid expansion of India's television and radio broadcasting capability, and then telecommunications and weather forecasting. That is the reason we have to remember the INSAT satellites. Okay, so this is enough about INSAT. Now let us move on to the next type of orbit, which is low Earth orbit. Now, what do you mean by that? It is not a single orbit, it is a range of orbits around the Earth with an altitude between 180 kilometers to 2000 kilometers. So a range of orbits with minimum altitude of 180 kilometers to the maximum altitude of 2000 kilometers above the Earth's surface together are low Earth orbit. Clear? Now, if you place an object at the minimum altitude of 180 kilometers or less, then the Earth's gravitational pull will be very strong. So the object will rapidly descend into the atmosphere, either burning up or crashing on the surface. Now, why does the object burn up in the Earth's atmosphere? Because the object will be falling through the atmosphere at a very, very high velocity. Now, the atmosphere is nothing but a layer of gases, and these gases will offer friction to the movement of object. So a lot of heat will be generated and the object will completely burn up. Clear? Now, what is the importance of low Earth orbit? It is the simplest and cheapest for satellite placement. As you can see, the altitude is very less, 180 kilometers to maximum 2000 kilometers. So it is the simplest and least expensive for satellite placement. So a majority of satellites are placed in low Earth orbit. And as we have discussed before, if a satellite is placed close to the Earth, it will be under tremendous gravitational pull of the Earth. So in order to stay in the orbit, the satellite has to move around the Earth with a very, very high velocity. So satellites in low Earth orbit move at extremely high speeds, around 7 kilometers per second. Just imagine that. And also just look at this image. This is geosynchronous or geostationary Earth orbit, and this is low Earth orbit. Clear, right? Moving on. Now, objects in low Earth orbit encounter atmospheric drag from gases in the thermosphere. Thermosphere extends between 100 kilometers to 500 kilometers above the Earth's surface, or exosphere, that is 500 kilometers and above. Okay, so objects in low Earth orbit encounter atmospheric drag from gases in thermosphere or exosphere depending on the orbit height. So yes, the density of gases in thermosphere and exosphere is very, very less, extremely less. But still, there are some gas molecules present. Okay, so objects in low Earth orbit encounter atmospheric drag. What do you mean by that? These gas molecules offer friction, offer resistance to the forward movement of satellites. Okay, so that is the reason satellites do not usually orbit below 300 kilometers. Clear, right? Now, Aryabhatta was the first satellite built by India. It was the first satellite built by India, but it was not launched from India. It was launched from the Soviet Union by a Russian made rocket on April 19, 1975. Okay. Now, Aryabhatta, it was named after the most prominent and, very famous, prominent astronomer and mathematician of the 5th century CE, Aryabhatta. So we all know Aryabhatta as the inventor of zero, right? So Aryabhatta was the first satellite built by India. Kindly remember this. I know that we have been studying this since our childhood, but remember this. Such things are very, very important. And Aryabhatta was placed in low Earth orbit. It was assembled in India, but it was launched from Soviet Union by Russian-made rocket. And then it contained instruments to explore Earth's ionosphere and measure neutrons and gamma rays from the sun. And this is the image of Aryabhatta. Clear, right? Now, what about the communication satellites in low Earth orbit? Previously, while discussing about geostationary and geosynchronous orbits, we have discussed that if you place a satellite in geostationary or geosynchronous orbit, it appears to remain at the same position in the sky, in the same region in the sky. So the receivers at the ground level, they can be positioned permanently. Okay, they don't have to change their position along with the movement of satellite because there's going to be no movement of the satellite if you place it in geosynchronous or geostationary orbit. So don't you think that communication satellites are better suited to be placed in geostationary or geosynchronous orbits? Because you can always maintain the communication between the satellite and the antenna at the ground. The antennas at the ground have to be positioned to face the same spot in the sky, to face the same locality or region in the sky. Okay, but communication satellites are placed in large numbers in low Earth orbit because less energy is required to place a satellite in low Earth orbit, and also satellites need less powerful amplifiers to transmit signal. Okay, if you place a satellite in low Earth orbit, it is comparatively very close to the Earth compared to geostationary or geosynchronous orbit. So less powerful amplifiers are needed to transmit the signal to the Earth. And not only that, we need less energy to place a satellite in low Earth orbit. And also, it is the cheapest of all the orbits. We have discussed that, right? So many communication satellites are placed in low Earth orbit. But low Earth orbits are not geostationary because satellites in low Earth orbit will be revolving around the Earth at very, very, very high speeds, around 7 kilometers per second, 8 kilometers per second, and so on. So I'm hoping that you're understanding the issue here. First, communication satellites need geostationary or geosynchronous orbit to provide continuous transmission, to maintain constant contact with the antenna at the ground level. But low Earth orbit are not geostationary. If you place a satellite in low Earth orbit, then it will move around the Earth at a very, very high velocity. Low Earth orbit are not geostationary. But a large number of communication satellites are placed in low Earth orbit. Why? Less energy is required to place a satellite in low Earth orbit. And not only that, low Earth orbits are very close to the Earth. So the satellites need less powerful amplifiers to transmit the signal to the ground level. So many communication satellites are placed in low Earth orbit. Apart from that, it is very cheap to place a satellite in low Earth orbit compared to the other orbits. Now, how do we, solve this issue here? And not only that, if you place a satellite in low Earth orbit, it has a small field of view because it is close to the Earth. Okay? Satellites in low Earth orbit have a small field of view. It means they are only able to observe and communicate with a small area on the Earth at a time. Okay, first of all, low Earth orbits are not geostationary, and also a satellite in low Earth orbit has a small field of view. Then how do we solve this issue? Very simple. Instead of placing one satellite in low Earth orbit, we place a group of satellites in the low Earth orbit to provide almost constant transmission. It can never be constant, almost constant transmission. And such group of satellites are called constellation of satellites. Okay. So in order to maintain almost constant communication, we place a network or a group of satellites called constellation of satellites in the low Earth orbit. Clear? As a result of this, the low Earth orbit is getting filled with satellites. And satellites die after some time. And not only that, the launch vehicles, the parts of the launch vehicles, the components of the launch vehicles will also remain in the orbit. So low Earth orbit is getting congested. Low Earth orbit is getting filled with space debris. So what do you mean by space debris? Space debris consists of used launch vehicle components, the old dead satellites, and also tiny parts and components of satellites. Space debris also consists of the tiniest bolts, nuts, screws, etc. Now, just imagine that you're trying to launch a new satellite into low Earth orbit. It's very dangerous there because the objects in low Earth orbit move at very, very high speeds. So just imagine a very tiny component of an old satellite came and collided with the new satellite. It will simply rip apart the new satellite. Okay? So in that way, the low Earth orbit is getting congested with space debris. There's an urgent need to clean up the space debris. So anyway, we are going to discuss about space debris in further videos in great detail. So just don't worry about that. Okay? So moving on, the International Space Station is in low Earth orbit at about 400 kilometers from the Earth's surface. And the Hubble Space Telescope is also in low Earth orbit at an altitude of 540 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So the International Space Station and the Hubble Space Telescope are the two most important satellites in low Earth orbit. So first, let us discuss about the International Space Station. The International Space Station is a habitable artificial satellite. What do you mean by habitable? Humans actually live in the International Space Station. So it is a habitable artificial satellite in low Earth orbit. Its first component was launched into orbit in 1998. So the International Space Station was assembled in the orbit. Okay? It was not assembled at the ground level and then launched into space. It was assembled part by part, component by component in the low Earth orbit. And the station is expected to operate until 2028. And even now, development and assembly of the station continues. Now, this point is very, very important, guys. The International Space Station is the largest human-made body in orbit. And wherever there is no light pollution, you can often see it with naked eye. Okay? Now, this is the International Space Station. So why was this space station constructed? What is the objective of the space station? The ISS serves as a microgravity and space environment research laboratory. Microgravity, we are talking about 400 kilometers above the Earth. So the ISS serves as a microgravity and space environment research lab in which crew members conduct experiments in human biology, physics, astronomy, weather study, etc. And apart from that, the station is suited for testing of spacecraft systems and equipment required for missions to the moon and Mars. Okay? So these 2 points explain the objective and purpose of the International Space Station. So the ISS maintains an orbit with an altitude between 330 and 435 kilometers. Okay, the altitude changes and it completes 15.5 orbits per day. So basically all the objects in the low Earth orbit will move very, very fast. It is not like geostationary orbit. where a satellite takes around 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds to finish one revolution around the Earth. An object in low Earth orbit is under tremendous gravitational pull of the Earth. So it has to move very, very fast in order to stay in the orbit. So the International Space Station also moves very fast, and it carries out around 15.5 orbits per day. Within a span of 24 hours, the ISS completes 15.5 orbits around the Earth. Clear, right? Now, all these points are extremely important. The International Space Station is a joint project among 5 participating space agencies. First is NASA of the United States. Next, Roscosmos, which is the Russian space agency. Next, you have the Japanese space agency, the European space agency, and the Canadian space agency. Okay, so ISS is a joint project of all these space agencies. Clear? Now, the ownership and use of the space station is established by intergovernmental treaties and agreements between the countries. I hope you're understanding this. Now, the station is divided into 2 sections. The entire International Space Station is divided into 2 sections. First is the Russian Orbital Segment, ROS, and the second is the United States Orbital Segment, USOS. Okay? Russian Orbital Segment is operated by Russia alone, but the United States Orbital Segment is shared by the remaining countries. The United States, the Japanese Space Agency, European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. Clear? So this point is important. Now, the Russian Orbital Segment is the name given to the components of the ISS constructed in Russia and operated by Roscosmos. Now, ROS, the Russian Orbital Segment, it handles the guidance, navigation, and control for the entire station. The United States Orbital Segment is the name given to the components of the ISS, constructed and operated by NASA and European Space Agency and Canadian Space Agency and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. So basically, ROS is only operated by Russia. ROS refers to all the components of ISS constructed and operated by Roscosmos. But when you speak about USOS, it refers to all the components of ISS constructed and operated by NASA, the European Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, and the Japanese Space Agency. Clear? So basically, USOS is operated by all these countries, but ROS is operated alone by Russia, Roscosmos. Now, the ISS has been continuously occupied since November 2000. Okay? So, since then, more than 200 people from 15 countries have been aboard the ISS. And this is the longest continuous human presence in low Earth orbit. So, astronauts from different countries go, stay there for some time, and then come back. And again, astronauts from different countries go, they'll stay there, again, they'll come back. In this way, human presence has been maintained constantly since the year 2000, since November 2000, in the International Space Station. Clear? So that is about the International Space Station. Now, let us move on to the next, the second most important object in the low Earth orbit, which is the Hubble Space Telescope. The Hubble Space Telescope was launched into low Earth orbit in 1990, and it remains in operation. The Hubble Space Telescope is named after the astronomer Edwin Hubble. So let us try to understand some details about Edwin Hubble. Edwin Hubble was an American astronomer. He played a crucial role in establishing the field of extragalactic astronomy. What do you mean by extragalactic astronomy? Studying the various other galaxies and objects which are beyond our own Milky Way galaxy. Okay, so that is the meaning of extragalactic astronomy. Hubble proved that many objects previously thought to be clouds of dust and gas, which are called nebulae, were actually galaxies beyond the Milky Way galaxy, our own home galaxy. Okay? And this is like the greatest achievement of Edwin Hubble, and this was already asked by UPSC. Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe is expanding. So this is like the greatest achievement of Edwin Hubble. Okay. So what did you understand about Edwin Hubble? He was an American astronomer and he played a very, very important role in establishing the field of extragalactic astronomy, which is studying the stars and galaxies and nebulas which are beyond the Milky Way galaxy. And then his greatest achievement is discovering that the universe is expanding. And this is a previous year question. So such things are very, very important. So the Hubble telescope has a 2.4 meter, that is 7.9 feet mirror. Okay, so don't get confused here. So basically telescopes are of different types. You have a reflector telescope. You also have a refractor telescope. So let me just explain the difference in a very, very brief way. The refractor telescope uses lens and reflector telescope uses mirrors. As simple as that. So Hubble telescope is a reflector telescope. It has a mirror. It has a 7.9 feet mirror. Now, why did I mention the size of the mirror here? Because if the mirror is large, it can take in more light and you can provide much more high resolution images of very, very, very far away objects. That is the significance of size of the mirror. Okay. So we are going to discuss more about this when we discuss James Webb Space Telescope in the further videos. But as of now, please understand that if the mirror is large, it can collect more light from faraway objects. So in this way, a telescope that has a large mirror can see very, very faraway objects, and also it can produce very high resolution images of even the faraway objects. So the Hubble has a 7.9 feet mirror. Hubble can observe in near ultraviolet, visible and near infrared spectra. So Hubble can not only observe astronomical objects in visible light, it can also take images of astronomical objects in ultraviolet and infrared spectrum also. Now, what is the advantage of Hubble which the other ground-based telescopes do not have? Actually, some of the ground-based telescopes have mirrors which are much larger than Hubble Space Telescope also. But Hubble has one advantage which the other ground-based telescopes do not have. That is, Hubble's orbit outside the distortion of the Earth's atmosphere allows it to take extremely high-resolution images. So this is one advantage Hubble has which the ground-based telescopes do not have. Okay? Now, this is called Eagle Nebula. Okay, so this is one of the high resolution images taken by Hubble. Okay, so this is a star forming region. So this image shows large, clouds of dust and gas, primarily hydrogen and helium. It is from such large clouds of gas and dust that stars form. Okay, Hubble has recorded some of the most detailed visible light images ever, allowing a deep view into space and time. Just look at the resolution of this image. Okay, so this shows Eagle Nebula, which is an active star forming region. Many Hubble observations have led to breakthroughs in astrophysics. Now let me show you the greatest achievement of Hubble ever. That is the Hubble Deep Field. This is one of the greatest achievements, or maybe I can even call it as the greatest achievement of Hubble ever. The Hubble Deep Field. So what happened? Astronomers positioned Hubble Space Telescope towards a very small and empty region in the space. Okay? And Hubble was left there in that direction for many weeks. So Hubble has collected all the light coming from that small empty region in the space and produced this image after a period of few weeks. So in this image, each and every dot you see is a galaxy, and every galaxy contains some hundreds of billions of stars. Okay, so that is Hubble Deep Field. I hope you understood the significance of this image. Very simple, the Hubble Space Telescope was positioned towards a very small and empty area in the space. It was empty because we couldn't see anything. Okay, Nothing was visible from that small region in the space. So the Hubble Space Telescope was turned to that direction and it was left there for a few weeks. In this span, the Hubble collected all the light coming from all the objects in that area and then finally produced this composite image. In this image, every single dot is a galaxy that contains some billions of stars. In this way, Hubble proved that the universe is enormous. The universe is infinite. Just from a very small region in the space, Hubble produced this image, a very, very small and seemingly empty region in this space. Hubble produced this image which contains some millions of galaxies. Every dot is a galaxy, and every galaxy contains some billions and billions of stars. Now I'm sure that you can imagine how huge the universe is and how small and insignificant we are. Okay? So the Hubble Deep Field is the greatest achievement of Hubble ever. It gave us into a glimpse of how large the universe actually is. Okay? So, moving on, next, let us discuss about the other type of orbit, which is polar orbit. We are done with low Earth orbit. We have discussed about low Earth orbit and the communication satellites in low Earth orbit, and we also spoke about the two most important objects in low Earth orbit, which are the International Space Station and the Hubble Space Telescope. Now let us discuss about the fourth type of orbit, that is polar orbit. A satellite in polar orbit revolves around the Earth from north to south. Okay? So this is how the satellite moves around the Earth in polar orbit. Polar orbit mainly lie at low altitudes between 200 to 1000 kilometers. So you can consider polar orbit as a type of low Earth orbit. Clear, right? Now, why do we have this polar orbit? As a satellite is revolving around the Earth in polar orbit, the Earth will keep spinning. The Earth will keep revolving. In this way, the satellite, in a span of, for example, say 24 hours, can observe most of the Earth. As the satellite is in orbit, the Earth is rotating beneath it. As a result, a satellite can observe the entire Earth's surface in the span of 24 hours. So polar orbits are used for Earth mapping and Earth observing satellites. This is very, 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 very important. So what is the use of polar orbits? Earth mapping and Earth observing satellites are placed in polar orbits. Because when a satellite is in polar orbit, revolving around the Earth is rotating, the Earth is spinning. So in a span of 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever span you take, a satellite can observe most of the Earth, or if not, the entire surface of the Earth within that span. So Earth mapping and Earth observing satellites are placed in polar orbit. Now, let me show you an animation of polar orbit to make you understand this in a better way. So as you can see, as the satellite is revolving around the Earth in polar orbit, the Earth is spinning. So within a span, that can be 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever span it is, the satellite is able to image and map most of the Earth. So Earth observing satellites are mostly placed in polar orbit. So this animation shows both polar orbit and the normal low Earth orbit. Okay? So I hope polar orbits are now clear. Now, the orbital path of the satellite does not have to cross the poles exactly for an orbit to be called polar. An orbit which passes within 20 to 30 degrees of the poles is still called a polar orbit. So when I say polar orbit, do not assume that the orbit should exactly lie above the North Pole and South Pole, the geographical north and south pole of the Earth. That is not a necessary condition. So an orbit which passes within 20 to 30 degrees of the poles is still called a polar orbit. Okay? So guys, in this video, we have discussed some very, very important concepts. We have discussed about low Earth orbit and then Hubble Space Telescope, International Space Station, and then we have discussed about polar orbit and the applications of polar orbit. All these concepts are very, very important, and most of these concepts were previous year questions. So if you have any doubts, kindly ask me as soon as possible. Do not hesitate. and even I'll try to get back to your doubts as soon as possible. Okay. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm hoping that you found this video useful and informative. In the next video, we are going to discuss about ISRO, the organizational structure of ISRO and the various important centers of ISRO. So thank you so much for watching. Keep watching, keep learning, and I wish you all the best.